1 Social Foundations of Teaching and Learning, 1.1. What is teaching and learning? 1.1.1. What is teaching? Teaching may mean different things to different people. Scholars in the area have come up with many and diverse definitions. For instance, teaching is defined as any form of interpersonal influence aimed at changing the ways in which other persons can or will behave. 1963. An interactive process, primarily involving classroom talk, which takes place between teacher and pupils and occurs during certain definable activities. Amadon and Hunter 1967. Interpersonal activity directed toward learning by one or more persons. Crowell 1985. Teaching denotes action undertaken with the intention of bringing about learning in another. Robertson 1987. Their variation may be attributed to the difference in the perspectives that scholars are advocating. This fact dictates that there is no one outstanding definition that explicates the concept teaching. Rather, contemporary educators prefer to describe teaching based on the common attributes suggested by many authorities than defining it. Accordingly, teaching is an activity or action. You can see teaching take place. You need not, and, some would argue, should not infer it from learning. A process. It involves a series of actions and decisions of the teacher. An interpersonal activity and/or process. Interpersonal refers to the fact that teaching involves interactions between a teacher and one or more students. Most often the interactions are verbal and two-way. Intentional. There is some purpose or set of purposes for which teaching occurs. This purpose is bringing about learning on the part of the learner. On the basis of the above attributes, we can operationally define teaching as interpersonal, interactive process consisting of sets of actions or activities designed to bring about learning on the part of the learner. The above description implies the fact that teaching and learning are two sides of the same coin. We say a person is teaching if and only if his/her actions bring about learning, change in knowledge, skill and attitude on the part of the learner. Effective teaching requires a basic understanding of what learning is and how it occurs. The following section deals with these issues. 1.1.2. What is learning? As discussed above, the ultimate goal of teaching is learning. Learning is about change, the change brought about by developing a new skill, understanding something new, changing an attitude. The change is not merely incidental or natural in the way that our appearance changes as we get older. Learning is a relatively permanent change, usually brought about intentionally and purposefully. When we attend a course, search through a book, or read a discussion paper, we set out to learn. Other learning can take place without planning, for example by experience or accident. Some of our learning can be more dangerous. For example, we might discover that a knife is very sharp by cutting ourselves. Generally, with all learning there is an element within us of wishing to remember and understand why something happens and to do it better or different the next time. As literature evidences, there seems consensus among scholars with respect to explicating the concept of learning, though there are variations with regard to the way learning occurs. This variation is highly attributed to the schools of thought that scholars are advocating. 1.2. Basic principles of effective teaching and learning. Having the basic concept on what of teaching and learning, in this section, you will see the core principles that lead you to pull out effective teacher and an effective learner quality. In order to say a teaching and learning process is appropriate and directed to attain the objectives set, we need to have certain characteristics to be fulfilled. when these manifestations are in place, intended goals can be achieved. The following are basic principles of effective teaching and learning. Apart from being used for characterization, they are also helpful to all interested in improvements in teaching and learning, and hence can be used to help identify areas of strength and areas for improvement. The principles are results of a study on the issues by a team of globally marked prominent educators. 1. Teachers' knowledge of the subject matter is essential to the implementation of important teaching tasks. Teachers who know their subject matter thoroughly can be more effective and efficient at organizing the subject matter, connecting the subject with the student's previous knowledge, finding useful analogies and examples, presenting current thinking on the subject, and establishing appropriate emphases. 2. Active involvement of the learner enhances learning. Learning is an active process which requires that the learner work with and apply new material to past knowledge and to everyday life. Some of the methods that encourage active learning in the classroom are discussion, practice sessions, structured exercises, team projects, and research projects. In the words of William James, teaching without an accompanying experience is like filling a lamp with water. Something has been poured in, but the result is not illuminating. 3. Interaction between teachers and students is the most important factor in student motivation and involvement. Interaction between students and faculty, particularly informal interaction, is one of the most important factors in student motivation for learning. The opportunity to know a few faculties well often enhances students' intellectual commitment and provides valuable role modeling. 4. Students benefit from taking responsibility for their learning. Students are more motivated when they take control of their own learning. This is the belief which has stimulated active interest in self-directed learning. 5. There are many roads to learning. Students learn in different ways and vary in their abilities to perform certain tasks. Understanding that each student has unique strengths and weaknesses related to the ways in which they approach learning is an important component of effective education. Providing a variety of learning activities for a class enables individual students to choose the activity which is the most effective for them at the moment. 6. Expect more and you will achieve more. Simply stated, if an educator conveys to students that he or she believes in their ability to succeed, learning is enhanced. 7. Learning is enhanced in an atmosphere of cooperation. Learning is enhanced when it is perceived as a collaborative and cooperative effort between students. The opportunity to share ideas without threat of ridicule and the freedom to respond to the ideas of others increases complexity of thinking and deepens understanding. 8. Material must be meaningful. If new material is presented in a pattern or framework that the learner can perceive, it is more readily learned and retained. New material will be more easily learned if the learner is helped to see its relationship to what he already knows. Material which is seen by the learner as relevant to his or her own problems and experiences will be more readily learned. 9. Both teaching and learning are enhanced by descriptive feedback. Without feedback, neither learner nor teacher can improve because they will not know what they need to know or to what extent they are fulfilling their goals. The learner's behavior will more quickly reach the objectives if they are informed or given feedback frequently about the correctness of their responses. Correct responses should be immediately reinforced to increase the permanence of learning. A positive reinforcement is anything that will increase the probability that the desired behavior will be repeated. A smile or comment to let the learner know he or she has successfully completed the task is especially good because awareness of successful completion is, in itself, the most effective of all reinforcers. Feedback about progress is helpful because learning is facilitated when the learner is aware that he or she is progressing towards the goals. 10. Critical feedback is only useful if the learner has alternatives to pursue. There is no use giving teachers or students feedback about their performances unless they can do something about it, that is, unless they have some alternative course of action or behavior. 11. Time plus energy equals learning. Office hours also help students to arrange time to talk with teachers. Students must learn how to organize their time so that they can find time to study. And the curriculum must be organized to allow students time to study. 12. Experience usually improves teaching. Experience is associated with increasing teacher effectiveness for some teachers, probably for those teachers who obtain feedback about their teaching and who are flexible enough to modify their methods in response to the feedback. 1.3. Major theories in sociology and their implication in educational settings. 1.3.1. Sociology of education. Sociology of education looks at education as evolving from and altering the social environment. From a sociological point of view, education is the organized and regulated process by which society transfers knowledge and values to prepare young people for adult social roles. Sociology of education is part of social science largely concerned with the mass educational systems. It covers sociological issues such as social stratification, socialization, economic development and culture. For some scholars, educational systems are mirrors of society, which has an inbuilt tendency to reproduce commonly accepted sets of values, norms and beliefs. A system of education is a product of collective thought and follows the changes of social values. For example, society where social status depends on merit will have an educational system that reflects this value by admitting young people to educational institutions through examination. As the teachers instill knowledge and ideals of society into the students, changes in both the content and form of teaching reflects underlying changes in the wider social and cultural context, since society is the source of morality and that society could be reformed through moral education. Morality is comprised of three elements: discipline, attachment, commitment to social groups, and autonomy, individual responsibility. Hence, education provides children with these moral tools needed to function in society. Others such as Karl Marx (1818–1883) and Max Weber (1864–1920) believe the political, the legal and the educational system are all products of the class nature of society and its economic base. The educational system, therefore, reproduces the economic base. Weber formulated a three-component stratification theory based on class economic relations to the market, status non-economic characteristics such as honor and religion, and party based on affiliation with political party. He developed a multi-level approach to social stratification based on the relation between wealth, prestige and power. Basic theories and research in sociology of education have explicitly or implicitly focused on the role of education in society. In practical terms, studies examine how much education has fulfilled its major goal of creating productive and adaptive citizens and, in a wider context, has contributed to positive change in society. Structural functionalists view society as a structure, with each part playing an integral role in the whole system. British philosopher and sociological functionalist Herbert Spencer (1820–1903) speaks of society's elements, norms, traditions, institutions as organs that contribute to the functioning of the body as a whole. Functionalists claim the educational system serves the needs of social order characterized by rationality and meritocracy. Thus, schools train individuals to become productive citizens and give society an efficient way to sort people for the labor market. People with the highest achievements will get the top jobs and highest income, and those with lower scores will take lower positions and lower pay. The functionalist theory was challenged in the 1970s by conflict-oriented theories, which highlight the social, political and economic inequality of social groups. The most prominent conflict approach, the neo-Marxist theory, states that the educational system follows the rules of capitalism, claiming that educational disparity reflects the inequality of the capitalist society. The status conflict approach views the struggle of class groups to use education to gain or maintain privilege. Consistent with this approach, the French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu (1930–2002) introduced the notion of cultural capital, arguing that the educational system reproduces the distribution of cultural capital among classes. The cultural capital refers to personal, social and cultural values and tastes that make a person fit a socially valued role. The interpretative approach draws from the principles of ethno-methodology, which focus on the social practices of real-time people in real settings and the methods by which these people produce a shared sense of social order. This tradition is also close to the symbolic interactionism, which explores how people create meaning through social interaction. As a school teacher and administrator, all of you are living in a small society known as school. You will find various relation learner and teacher, peer group, boys and girls, different social background etc., values, religion and culture and educational institutions. So we must know the pattern, concerns of this society for effective educational outcome. The relation between sociology and education has always been a subject of debate. One concept says education is meant to overcome the inequalities of society, whereas the other says the prime function of education is to promote the equilibrium status of the society, that is, it tries to maintain equality-inequality whatever state is prevalent in the society. The sociologist who favors second theory says that education is a social effort, hence it runs the way society wants. And society moves in the direction the dominant group of society wants. According to them, the second theory is a propagated myth by the promoter of first theory. The first theory is set positive and second is leveled as negative thought. Although there is conflict which theory is most relevant. One thing is crystal clear, that education is social effort and it reflects rather than directs society. If education is said to direct society, it is true only because there is a social force favoring this. Both the theory has a role to play in defining the relation between sociology and education. This relation plays a great role in learning outcome. So it is a matter of great interest for the people like you, who is directly linked to educational institutions. Education as a process and an idea exists within a societal context. Whether formal or informal learning, education is organized in the society by individuals who are members of a particular group, community, states and nation. So, you understand the significance of the society in educational transactions and organizing curricular events. Sociologists have identified important themes within debates about education policy. These include questions about equality and inequality, uniformity and diversity. Perceptions of equality include egalitarianism, emphasizing equal outcomes, equal access to equal resources, competitive access, rationing access to superior education, parental choice, the ideology of parentocracy, and biological determinism with its emphasis on inequality. There are also debates about how much uniformity or diversity, segregation or integration, there should be in education. 1.3.2 Sociological theories and education. Education is the most important part of a person's life. Without a good education, people would struggle in everyday life just to be able to get by. There are 3 theories that help to understand education. Even though most people feel theories are just someone's opinions, education has many different theories that support it because these theories help people understand education better, and these theories are all different, but yet they help to identify what education really is. The 3 theories that are important for people to know are functionalism, conflict, and interactionism. These 3 theories play an important role in helping to understand education and why education is important. These theories are not just one man's opinion. They give a prime meaning of what education is really about. Martin Luther King Jr. once said the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Without sociological theories to help understand what education is all about and why education is important, we would not get the true identity of education. Education does not just help you with a better career, it also helps you with your social skills, your ability to understand things better, and most importantly, it helps you to be able to identify yourself. Sociological explanations and theories have developed from an early emphasis on the social structure towards a synthesis of structural and interpretative perspectives. Functionalist approaches have emphasized the role of education in maintaining consensus and continuity. Approaches emerging from Marxist influences have emphasized conflict and change within education and inequalities of educational opportunities within a capitalist system. Critical theorists have emphasized the role of education in supporting an ideological superstructure and perpetuating inequalities. Interpretative influences have included descriptions of how working-class boys have creatively interacted with their social constraints to generate self-fulfilling prophecies. Postmodernist ideas challenge even basic assumptions about education. 1.3.2.1 Functionalist theory. Structural functionalists believe that role of educational institutions is to incorporate common consensus among the new member children of the society. According to Durkheim, in educational institutions the behavior is regulated to accept the general moral values through curriculum and hidden curriculum. Educational institutions also sort out learners for future market. It plays the role of grading learners' outcome to fit them to different future jobs. High achievers will be trained for higher jobs and low achievers will be fitted in less important jobs. The behavior of member of society is regulated in such a way that they accept their roles in society according to their social status. Thus, structural functionalism opposes social mobility. The weakness of this perspective lies in inability to answer the question, why would the working class wish to stay working class? And this debate has given birth to another perspective theory, that is conflict theory. We will study conflict theory in next subsection. The functionalist theory and sociology of education is a theoretical perspective in sociology. Functionalism essentially interprets each part of society in terms of how it contributes to the constancy of the society as a whole. As such, it is agreed that society is more than just the sum of its constituents. Each part has a role to play in ensuring that the whole society remains stable. Functionalism in the philosophy of mind is the doctrine that what makes something a mental state of a particular type does not depend on its internal constitution, but rather on the way it functions, or the role it plays, in the system of which it is a part. This doctrine is rooted in Aristotle's conception of the soul, and has antecedents in Hobbes's conception of the mind as a calculating machine, but it has become fully articulated and popularly endorsed only in the last third of the 20th century. Though the term functionalism is used to designate a variety of positions in a variety of other disciplines, including psychology, sociology, economics, and architecture, this entry focuses exclusively on functionalism as a philosophical thesis about the nature of mental states. 1.3.2.2 Conflict theory. Education is one of the most powerful social institutions as it has access to the children right from the beginning in their life. Education institutions has great control. Education institutions decide the future perspective of the children. But the question arises that what is the dominant force behind educational institution? Who decides the way educational institutions should run? As we read, society has many social groups with different social aims and aspirations, different status and life chances. As the aspiration of different groups are varied and may be conflicting, so there is conflict for becoming the dominant force of educational institutions. Obviously, the dominant group will be the force behind educational institutions. Educational institutions follow the directions of dominant group to maintain the status quo of society, that is, the lower, middle and upper class children become lower, middle and upper class adults respectively. This is a cyclic process as the dominant group roots the values and aims favoring themselves in educational institutions. Dominant group also promotes the myth through other institutions like government, economy, that education is for all and provide a means of achieving wealth and status. Anyone who fails to achieve this goal, according to the myth, has to blame himself, not the social inequality and unfavorable educational opportunities. Conflict theorists believe this social reproduction is a cyclic process because the whole education system is flooded with ideologies provided by the dominant group. According to this theory, people always tries to go up in level of society. Thus, this theory promotes social mobility. 1.3.2.3 Interactionism. Interactionist theories are different in scope to the type of structuralist theories. While interactionists write about much the same type of things as their consensus and conflict counterparts, the theoretical emphasis is different. This is something that we now have to elaborate when we look at the various ways that interactionist sociologists have interpreted the concepts of culture and identity. Interactionist perspectives tend to concentrate upon relatively small-scale levels of social interaction between individuals, small social groups and so forth, and, for this reason, they are sometimes referred to as a micro-level of sociological analysis. Interactionist theories overview culture by identifying a number of basic characteristics of human cultures. They believe education is a product of social interaction. That is, cultures develop out of the way people act towards one another in a way that involves both purpose and meaning. 1.3.3 Social reproduction. Social reproduction, according to refers to the emphasis on the structures and activities that transmit social inequality from one generation to the next. It is the replacement of people or structures with a new set similar to the original, such that the social system can continue. While reproduction may mean copying what existed in the past, this is unlikely to occur in any exact manner for societies as a whole. There are always changed environmental, social and economic conditions, along with new technologies and processes. Over time, there are new individuals who have different characteristics. These individuals relate to others in new and different ways. Consider, for example, integration of newcomers to a country as a two-way process, involving adaptation of the newcomers to the country, but also meaning changes in social structure as these newcomers integrate. Where reproduction of social processes, structures, institutions and social relationships is involved, reproduction of the society can even be problematic. There are also economic and political processes involved, and reproduction of society, especially in the contemporary era, likely involves considerable change in the structures, institutions and social relationships of society. The following are the major three types of capital that contributes to social reproduction in society. They are social capital, human capital and cultural capital. 1.3.3.1 Social capital. In sociology, social capital is the expected collective or economic benefits derived from the preferential treatment and cooperation between individuals and groups. Although different social sciences emphasize different aspects of social capital, they tend to share the core idea that social networks have value. Just as a screwdriver physical capital or a university education cultural capital or human capital can increase productivity both individual and collective, so do social contacts affect the productivity of individuals and groups. 1.3.3.2 Human capital. Human capital is the stock of competencies, knowledge, social and personality attributes, including creativity, embodied in the ability to perform labor so as to produce economic value. It is an aggregate economic view of the human being acting within economies, which is an attempt to capture the social, biological, cultural and psychological complexity as they interact in explicit and/or economic transactions. Many theories explicitly connect investment in human capital development to education, and the role of human capital in economic development, productivity growth, and innovation has frequently been cited as a justification for government subsidies for education and job skills training. 1.3.3.3 Cultural capital. The term cultural capital refers to non-financial social assets that promote social mobility beyond economic means. Examples can include education, intellect, style of speech, dress, or physical appearance. Cultural capital is a sociological concept that has gained widespread popularity since it was first articulated by Pierre Bourdieu. Bourdieu and Jean-Claude Passeron first used the term in Cultural Reproduction and Social Reproduction 1973. In this work he attempted to explain differences in children's outcomes in France during the 1960s. For Bourdieu, capital acts as a social relation within a system of exchange, and the term is extended to all the goods material and symbolic, without distinction, that present themselves as rare and worthy of being sought after in a particular social formation, and cultural capital acts as a social relation within a system of exchange that includes the accumulated cultural knowledge that confers power and status. 1.4 What are functions of school in society? This is then the section that will concretize your understanding of the unit issues and topics in explaining the social entities in school organizations, process of socialization development and socially sensitive and informed school settings on favoring teaching and learning. 1.4.1 Functions of a school. School in the modern time is treated as the most suitable, active and formal agency of education. As per the changing need of the hour, school develops and grows with its specific goals. It is emerged out of the demand for education and pressure on the parents regarding their educational pursuit. The word school has been derived from the Greek word schole that means leisure. It was before in the ancient Greece to utilize leisure time in a systematic way. But now this concept has changed to prime time activity. It is an essential investment field now on which the entire superstructure of life of the individual and nation will build. Education has a great social importance. Philosophers of all periods, beginning with ancient ages, devoted to it a great deal of attention. Accordingly, various theories regarding its nature and objective have come into being. The following are some of the significant functions of education. Main functions of school. 1. To complete the socialization process. The main social objective of education is to complete the socialization process. The family gets the child, but the modern family tends to leave much undone in the socialization process. The school and other institutions have come into being in place of family to complete the socialization process. Now, the people felt that it is the school's business to train the whole child, even to the extent of teaching him honesty, fair play, consideration for others and a sense of right and wrong. The school devotes much of its time and energy to the matters such as cooperation, good citizenship, doing one's duty and upholding the law. Directly through textbooks and indirectly through celebration of programs, patriotic sentiments are intimated and instilled. The nation's past is glorified, its legendary heroes respected, and its military ventures justified. 2. To transmit the central heritage conservation and promotion culture. All societies maintain themselves by exploitation of a culture. Culture refers to a set of beliefs and skills, art, literature, philosophy, religion, music etc., that are not carried through the mechanism of heredity. They must be learned. This social heritage culture must be transmitted through social organizations. Education has this function of cultural transmission in all societies. It is only at the underleaves of the school that any serious attempt has been, or now is, made to deal with this area. The school conserves the valuable culture, tradition, values of the society and helps in promoting and developing these with the rolling of the time. It also spreads the store of culture to the next generation. 3. Development of higher values of life for the formation of social personality. School helps in developing and cultivating good and higher values like truth, sympathy, love, cooperation, etc. in child. Through different social interactions and moral teachings, it spreads the message of righteous living in a society. Individual must have personalities shaped or fashioned in ways that fit into the culture. Education everywhere has the function of the formation of social personalities. Education helps in transmitting culture through proper molding of social personalities. In this way, it contributes to the integration, to survive and to reproduce them. For reformation of attitudes, education aims at the reformation of attitudes wrongly developed by children already. For various reasons the child may have absorbed a host of attitudes, beliefs and disbeliefs. loyalties and prejudices, jealousy and hatred, etc. These are to be reformed. It is the function of education to see that unfounded beliefs, illogical prejudices and unreasoned loyalties are removed from the child's mind. Though the school has its own limitations in this regard, it is expected to continue its efforts in reforming the attitudes of the child. 5. Development of social responsibility. School is called a society in miniature, because in school child shares his feelings with various children coming from different strata. So he learns the lessons of social duties, responsibilities and understanding the feelings of others. So school helps in social change and social control. 6. Citizenship training. School creates the first civic society for the child. So child learns the duty and civic rights for the country as a responsible citizen. So school trains the lessons of citizenship to a child. 7. Adjustability in society. School prepares child to face the problems of the society. So proper adjustment and application of learned knowledge can be checked and guided by school. So the main function of a school is to develop adjustment capacity of an individual. 8. Vocational training. Education trains in skills that are required by the economy. Through different activities, school provides training in different vocations. It also cultivates the values of dignity of work and labor. It prepares children to face any challenge in the future to solve their bare necessities. The role of school cannot be confined with these lines. In modern days, the role of school has been increasing day by day. It is called the hub of learning. Every developed state gives first priority to the schools for total national development. Really, school is now a prestigious institution in the society, which can be called a man-making factory. The relation between the economy and education can be an exact one. For example, the number and productive capacity of engineering firms are limited by the number of engineers produced by education. In planned economy, normally it is planned years in advance to produce a definite number of doctors, engineers, teachers, technicians, and scientists, etc. to meet the social and economic needs of the society. 9. Fosters participant democracy. Education fosters participant democracy. Participant democracy in any large and complex society depends on literacy. Literacy allows full participation of the people in democratic processes and effective voting. Literacy is a product of education. Educational system has this economic as well as political significance. Education imparts values, the curriculum of the school, its extracurricular activities and the informal relationships amongst students and teacher communicate social skills and values. Through various activities a school imparts values such as cooperation or atmospheric, obedience, fair play. This is also done through curriculum, that is through lessons in history, literature, etc. 10. Education acts as an integrative force. Education acts as integrative force in society by communicating value that unites different sections of society. The family may fail to provide the child the essential knowledge of the social skills and values of the wider society. The school or the educational institutions can help the child to learn new skills and learn to interact with people of different social backgrounds. 11. Education encourages the spirit of competition. The school instills cooperative values through civic and patriotic exhortation or advice. Yet the school's main emphasis is upon personal competition. For each subject studied, the child is compared with the companies by percentage of marks or rankings. The teacher admires and praises those who do well and frowns upon those who fail to do well. the school's ranking system serves to prepare for a later ranking system. Many of those who are emotionally disappointed by low ranking in the school are thereby prepared to accept limited achievement in the larger world outside the